Start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Peace and blessings on Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family and his companions. If I could start with a reminder, I wanted to start by talking about, obviously, we're in this terrible pandemic, and some of us may be feeling quite frightened, quite alone with the isolation and the distancing. Some of us I know are on the front line, very much on the front line, some of us, some of our friends, and some may be unwell. And this tiny, tiny virus has really gripped our nation and gripped our world. And there's a lot of negatives we can be focusing on. But today I really wanted to focus on some positives. Despite the isolation, the fear, the lockdown, there have been some amazing examples of people reaching out to one another. And that's what I want to speak about today. So if I start with just my streets, on our streets, we don't really talk very much actually, but a neighbor of mine set up a neighborhood WhatsApp group for the first time just a few weeks ago. And it's brilliant because everyone's in contact supporting one another, but she's also sourced me a visor for Monday, which is just amazing for me because I was feeling a bit frightened working without a visor. So she got that for me and many more actually for my colleagues from the neighborhood WhatsApp group. On this WhatsApp group, I've put an oxygen saturation monitor outside my front door for use by any neighbours who might be unwell, because in my view, there are pros and cons, but I think it's the single most important piece of equipment right now. People are shopping for one another, checking up on one another, checking up on the elderly and the more at risk. And the clapping, I'm not going to go into the politics of the clapping, I'm not going to politicise it, but I think for the first time in a long while, people are so genuinely appreciative about the NHS. It's been bashed by some media outlets. It's been chronically underfunded, but there's a groundswell of support now, and that's fantastic. Many of you may have heard the drummer who played the dole down the street in Cardiff. It was absolutely brilliant, a fantastic gesture. Our mosque locally has been leafleting the community and has been delivering food to A&E departments and ITUs of 2 local hospitals. And I know this is just an example of what's happening up and down the country. Young Muslims in Birmingham have been doing packs for at-risk communities of masks and gloves, antiseptic gel, and so on. You may even have heard of the Nightingale mosques. A mosque in Bolton has converted the mosque into a hospital for those recovering from COVID-19. That's just absolutely amazing. I have never heard patients speak the way that they are right now. I mean, every conversation is look out for one another, look after yourself. Thank you for being there. It's an unprecedented support and shukr, really. Thanks for this NHS that we have. And I think this onslaught really has made us reflect on our own vulnerability and weakness as human beings, as insan. We are so susceptible to something that's just so invisible to us. Yet we may have considered ourselves so mighty and so self-reliant. We may have considered ourselves giants, and we're reminded that we're not. But there are strengths that we do have, and I wanted to focus on 3 of those. What makes us strong? I think number 1 is our communities, the social welfare that's really been catalyzed at the moment. How can we eat when our neighbour's hungry? How can we shop when someone can't get out to the shops? Are there people on our streets who can't manage, who can't cope? Thinking about them is a fundamental aspect of our faith. And we're really seeing communities coming alive with that. I think number 2 is our key workers and our frontline workers, our shopkeepers, those who are stocking our shelves, the bin collectors, the transport services, our bus drivers, God bless them all, our care staff in care homes and our health workers on the front lines. They've really come to the fore, and the gratitude that we feel for them is really being highlighted. And I think last but not least, in our strength is our mindset that this is a test from Allah. He is all knowing and all aware. We were meant to tread this path. We were meant to be where we are, and we're meant to endure. And as we isolate, we can start to turn in on ourselves with reflection and self-development, and turn with more love towards our families and our nearest and dearest. And we can continue our work of reaching out in our communities to help those who are at risk and vulnerable. And we can be, if some of us have the skills, on the front line helping serve others that are unwell. And I wanted to finish just by reminding ourselves of tawakkul, that complete and utter trust and dependence on Allah, that Allah is here with us through this, through this pandemic and the awful news we're hearing. He's hearing our call, he's hearing our pleas, he's hearing our du'as, he's healing some, and he's accepting others as martyrs in his way, watching our efforts for one another. And I wanted to finish with this verse from the Quran, Surah 65, verse 3. And whoever places his trust in Allah, sufficient is he for him, for Allah will surely accomplish his purpose. For verily, Allah has appointed for all things a due proportion. So I'm going to now hand over Kathleen. Thank you for being so patient, who's going to be talking about family life. Kathleen Roche-Nagi is coming from Approachable Parenting, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah khairan, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's a pleasure being here with you this evening, MashaAllah, doing this little session with you. Inshallah, may Allah make it beneficial to us all, whether we are parents or young people that don't have any children, that we gain something from this knowledge that will benefit ourselves and benefit others in this time, especially of isolation, where we're all having struggles and difficulties. Jazakallah khairan to ISB and Sarah for asking me to be part of this wonderful evening this evening. I'm really looking forward to it, and inshallah I hope you are too, and that we will have a good session together, an interactive session, and that you'll be able to feedback some things to me when I ask you some questions. I don't see the chat box, but Sarah will probably be able to see that and feed it back to me if you're writing in the chat box. MashaAllah, let's see now, we're moving on to the next slide. And that's something I didn't try. I see this bring me on. Yes, alhamdulillah. Technology is brilliant, you know, it's great when it works. Sometimes when it doesn't work, you know, we don't feel so great. But in this time, mashallah, an age where we're all at home, it is just so wonderful that we're actually able to connect with each other and see each other and enjoy each other's faces and companies over internet. It's not that long ago when we didn't have this technology. SubhanAllah, even if you look back 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do this. It's wonderful how things have changed, and alhamdulillah, that's part of Allah's mercy that He's giving us this test at the moment, but alhamdulillah has given us ease as well, because we have technology to be able to communicate with each other. You can see the outline of this evening's session, so a little bit about getting to know you and who you are and what maybe you would like from today, or a little bit about yourself. I know there's a lot of people that's joined in the group, so I don't know how we're going to do that. I'll leave that to Sarah. If people are able to give their names and whether they're a parent or not a parent, it would be nice to just understand who is here and who's with me this evening, so I can tailor this session to you and to your needs. Then we're going to be exploring a bit about ourselves and getting to know ourselves a bit more, and then we're going to be looking at understanding parenting a bit better, and how we can be better parents in this period of time. And then we're going to establish good connections with each other, hopefully, inshallah, with our children, and how we do that, and some tips and tools around that, inshallah. I hope there'll be something there for everybody this evening, inshallah. And as you can see the cogs in the picture in front of you, we are trying to make these cogs go around nice and smoothly and enjoy each other, inshallah, and get to know each other and enjoy the beautiful weather we're having as well when we're doing that. The sun is very appropriate for today in this picture. But I also put like the connections into the computer, what do you call this, USBs connections. So in modern day, a lot of our children and young people are used to being online on internet, and this is where so much learning takes place. And we need to be trying and get closer to them in their framework, not in our framework. Learning this way online is the new way of learning, like what we're doing this evening, how we're learning this evening. It is the new way of learning. And if we want to become closer to our children, we need to come to see what they're doing and get involved in what they're doing. I've often spoke to parents and they say, oh, I have a big problem with my children. They never listen to me. They never do what I say. And I said, well, how do you get to know them? What do you do with them? They said, they're all day playing on these games. And I said, have you sat down and played with them on the games? No, why would I do that? Of course you need to do that. You need to be there with them. You need to get to know them and what they like and understand what they like. So this is what I'm hoping that we'll be able to this evening, with a wide range of people that's here, that we'll understand the importance of getting to know our children, whether it is through internet games or board games or going for a walk or doing something new together, preparing a quiz night together, doing any kind of cooking together, activities together. This is important for us to be able to do together to get to know our children. So, and we can set some goals like that for ourselves, that we can establish those good links, especially before Ramadan, alhamdulillah, that we get to know and understand and love each other and who they are, inshallah, and divide out our time in our day, that we have different activities where our Islam is vitally important in this time, inshallah. May Allah bring us closer to Islam. We should also be having some time for other things, not just Islam. So we don't want our children to move away from their faith because you keep pushing Islam and maybe learning Quran all the time. We need to have that balance there. That balance is really important in everything we do, and having that fun. And when children have fun, it's like us. When we have fun, we learn through having fun. When they have fun, they learn through having fun. So we need to have that fun element there for everybody, inshallah, to be able to learn and understand, inshallah. Just a little bit about me, if you don't know who I am. My name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi. I'm Managing Director of Approachable Parenting. My own background, I'm Irish. I converted to Islam, a long time ago now. We had a recession in Ireland in the mid-80s, and I was a newly qualified nurse and midwife. And with this recession, there was no jobs. So this job was advertised in Egypt, and 26 Irish nurses went over to Egypt, mashallah, to work in this hospital. And a few of us, there was about 5 or 6 of us that came back with husbands, and I came back as Muslim, alhamdulillah. So I often ponder over that, actually, and maybe this evening we're going to be pondering and thinking about ourselves, but I ponder over that a lot and think, how did Allah choose me to bring me into this faith? If you had seen where I grew up in the back of beyonds, really the back of beyonds in Ireland, very much in the countryside, but I did love my religion. I remember having my Bible under my arm as a young child and get my mother to ask me stories, and religion was really important to me, although there was some things that I couldn't quite understand. And when I went to Egypt and found out about Islam and found out that this answered the questions I had, alhamdulillah, it made the journey easy for me. And it is a journey. It's a journey that takes time when you come to Islam. It was probably one of the most self-developmental stages in my life. And I don't think any other period would ever be the same as this again, because you really have to look at yourself and examine myself to get that answer. And alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to be a Muslim. Over the years, then when I was working in the UK, I studied as well, did a lot of voluntary work when my children were growing up, as a peer mentor first for many years, and then I became a qualified counsellor to try and address the needs that were out there in the Muslim community, because there wasn't very many Muslim counsellors at that time. And then I became a life coach, and later on I became a teacher, because when I wanted people to become trainers of our programs, they needed, or I wanted them to all to have a teaching qualification. So I had to become a teacher, so to deliver that training for them so that they could gain the award in education and training as part of their delivery process, part of their training, to be able to deliver to you the pregnancy to 3, which is, and pregnancy and beyond is another one we deliver in Women's Hospital and in the community. And pregnancy to 3 at the moment is delivered in children's centres. 4 to 11 is delivered in Manchester, Bradford, London, as well as the West Midlands. And the teenage program, we have delivered it in Birmingham before, and we're hoping to deliver more of that, inshallah, soon in Birmingham. We know there's a big need for the teenage program there. We also deliver pre-marriage, which is called Me For You, Marriage Education for You. This has been running now for 10, 12 years probably. It's a one-day workshop where you're getting to know yourself and, inshallah, know who you want for marriage. So it's built on 4 blocks. Who am I? Who am I looking for? Understanding Mr. and Mrs. Right by looking at Mr. and Mrs. Wrong, and looking at difficulties that come up and problem solving and different characters and values and how we understand that. So alhamdulillah, we've been doing that for a period of time, and also present on Unity FM every week, Parenting Hour, alhamdulillah. We have some parents that are trained up to peer mentor other parents, and at the moment we are accepting people if they want some help. We have parents, we have psychotherapists, we have counsellors, we have psychologists on the team that are all there and offering some free help at the moment, inshallah. So we are scrutinising and those referrals that come in to make sure that you get the right help that is needed. We have been recognised by the Department of Education, alhamdulillah. We've been evaluated by a lot of the governmental bodies going back, because the programme started in 2007, so from 2008 right up we were scrutinised. Alhamdulillah, in 2011 we were informed we were an evidence-based programme to the Department of Education website. We received the Parenting Quality Mark in 2014 in the House of Commons, alhamdulillah, and we're also on the Early Intervention Foundation guidebook. So that's a bit about the background. In parenting, if we're talking about parenting in general, I often put it down to hydrogen and oxygen elements. So we have, if you remember your Science Days parents, and young people, you remember this as well, and keep this in your mind, young people, because this is really important. If you have hydrogen and oxygen come together to form water, in the vapor stage, imagine the steam of the kettle, that vapor, those molecules move around so easily. That's the pregnancy to 3 stage. That's when the character of the child can be developed so easily. And we're going to talk a little bit about it later on, how we develop that, inshallah. After that steam, we then have liquid. We can maneuver liquid, not as easy as steam, but we can still move it around. That's the school-going age, 4 to 11. What comes after liquid? I know you all know it, ice, yes, the ice. If we get in early, we can sculpture those blocks of ice. We may need to touch them up because there'll always be difficulties, always be issues. But if we don't, we have blocks of ice to move. You can imagine pushing blocks of ice, what it's like. And this is why we tell our parents it's so important to get in early, to understand parenting from an early age, rather than leaving it like the queues of parents we have waiting for teenager programs. It's so important to get in early, alhamdulillah, to get the correct support that is needed there for you. But inshallah, we're here to help you with whatever you need, inshallah. So the isolation iceberg. I put this together because a lot of our parents are telling us, and if you've been seeing any of what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks now, over the last 3 weeks, in the Facebook Live pages, is talking about the behaviours that are seen and the difficulties that are seen. And the top of that iceberg, as you can see, is the observable bit, the behaviours that we see. The behaviours can be difficult, and can be, a lot of it is around fear, worry, confusion, tension, not sleeping correctly. So the behavior is often that disrespect, that ignoring, that or continuously watching the news, or on screen time, or not focusing on studies, or not getting that eating well, not having that rounded day that people usually have, because of what's underneath the iceberg. The worry, the fear, the tension, and the thoughts that people may have. What if my family get ill? What if I can't cope? What if I get ill? So a lot of these worries are happening underneath this iceberg that people cannot see. But this is what we need to understand and work on to solve those behaviors. This is how we need to sit down and have conversations with each other, because it's adults that are having these fears as well as young people. And parents may think that, oh, my child doesn't understand. Your 2-year-old child understands this. Your 2-year-old child is pulling up and picking up what you're listening to, your body language, what you're saying, how you're saying it. So they are picking up this. So they know that there's something going on. This is why we need to sit down together and explain in an appropriate way and be calm about what we're trying to explain to our children. And try to problem solve disagreements early with each other. We may be in a closed space. Some of us may live in flats and not even have a garden. So you're on top of each other. So you can imagine how hard and how difficult it is to move around and to be there 24/7. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, trying to grab some space if you're working from home. So maybe using the kitchen table, or that table that another person may prepare food on. You have your computer there, your laptop there, trying to work. Really difficult, really tight. So the situation is really hard on people. But we should try and look after each other. Try and look and respect others. Show love to others. Be God conscious. Be aware of Allah. What would Allah is watching us. So what can we say to Allah if we're responding in a nasty way? How can we respond better, inshallah, to have a better response to ourselves, to know ourselves, to learn about ourselves, to unpick and understand our core values. Today, I don't have time to go teach you your core values, but maybe we can do that another time. But we should all understand what is our core values. Be able to understand what is right and what is wrong, and put the right things into practice. And each one of us is different. Each one of us will have different core values. Your core values is what is important to you and how you live your life. And why I say it's important is if you don't know your core values, you can actually never achieve your goals. And an explanation of this would be if you wanted to buy a new BMW, for example, but your core value was to give to charity, and you always gave to charity. So with every disaster, you gave to charity. And now at the moment, you're giving more and more to charity. But you still want this new BMW. You could never save up. Because your core value of giving to charity is so high, you may never have enough money for this new BMW. So you may have to go back and change that goal. Can I do it a second-hand BMW? Or can I change to a different type of car? And take it from there. So this is where we need to look at our values and understand our values, because it impacts so much on our goals, which underpins who we are. But I hope this gives you a little flavor of what's happening around, what's happening with our children around us, because they are playing out also because of their fears, because they also are listening to the radio and the TV, and they're also afraid that something may be happening to you or to them, and they don't quite understand it. Now, it doesn't mean that you go in depth in conversations, age-appropriate conversations to them, but reassure them. Bring laughter and fun into the family. Use this time to get to know them. Actually, this is so blessed that we're here doing this, coming into the summer, springtime coming into the summer, where the weather is so lovely and when the trees are changing and the flowers are coming and nature is changing to blossom. It's so wonderful, mashallah. Because we could be through this period in snow and frost and rain. So alhamdulillah, that all that rain has passed. So we can actually enjoy that brightness and that sunshine together. And if we can't get out, if we don't have a garden, even opening the windows and listening to the birds. Mashallah, the birds have been singing so much recently in the last few weeks. I wonder, have you noticed it? There's flowers that has come out in my garden that probably I've never noticed before, because now I have much more time to look. And I've visited spots that probably I haven't seen for a long time. It's usually I come in the front door and I'm not seeing that spot. For us all, try and look at areas like this and try and make a plan and see if we can visit a part of the garden every day, or if we can look at nature, inshallah, if we can take a topic to enjoy with our children and learn about it ourselves, even the names of trees and names of birds, the songs birds are singing, and enjoy this time together in learning about it. And then we could have a quiz at the end of the week of how we do this, make it fun, inshallah. I'm going to move on now to a little bit more about looking at ourselves and how we explore ourselves, because we have a SWOT analysis here. Have you heard of a SWOT analysis before? Some of you will be very used to it if you work in the workplace where you have done SWOT, where you do SWOT on businesses, business plans. We often have a SWOT analysis if you're putting forward a business plan, or if you're looking for funding, they will require a SWOT analysis. So you have to look at the strengths of that project, the weakness of that project, opportunities and threats. But how many of us have done it on ourselves? Now, this is suitable if you are a teenager, a young person up to 25, a parent, or if you're a young person over 25 and still not a parent. This is suitable for everybody to really look at themselves. So, who am I? Who am I really? What strengths do I have? What am I good at? What skills and experience are unique to me? Am I good at crafts? Making films? Volunteering? What are my strengths? Maybe you can take, if you have a pen and paper close to you, you might be able to take a pen and paper and just jot down a few things so that you're looking at their strengths. We all have strengths. Unfortunately, we often go looking at our weaknesses and not our strengths. And if we do something, I often, when I do my teaching and we have our trainers there, they have to give a 15-minute presentation as part of the program. And after the presentation, I ask them 3 questions. What went well? What didn't go well? And what would you do differently the next time? Every time I ask the first question, what went well? They start nearly 80% of the time, what didn't go well? And I have to remind them, we're asking you first, what went well? Because we automatically jump in and look at our weaknesses. We don't think of the strengths we have. And we all, alhamdulillah, we've all got strengths. We've all got those strengths. Allah has given us some strengths, some unique talents ourselves. So we all have these talents, alhamdulillah. And they can be very, very different. But this is a time that we can actually look at these talents and nourish these talents, inshallah. Where we have some more time to nourish these talents. What about our weaknesses? What weaknesses do we have? What do I usually avoid doing? What am I not good at? What don't I feel so confident at? What do I put down myself? What fears do I have? Fear is vital. I can honestly say that fears is something that pulls us all back. I remember when I was one time coaching, and I was commissioned by the NHS to coach BME managers to move up the scale to become towards directors. They want to see more BMEs there. It's going back a good few years now. SubhanAllah, I would say fear was the thing that prevented people from moving on. Fear of failure. Fear, I'm not going to be able to do this. Even sometimes fear of success. Fear really holds us back. I'm sure some of you have heard the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So it's important that we have to go through fear. It's like sitting in our dentist waiting room. If you remember back when we were sitting in the dentist waiting room and we were sitting outside and you'd hear the drill going and you were there outside, oh, you think, or is this going to be me? The only way to overcome that fear is to go in and get your deeds seen and done. Ask Allah to help you in that fear. Because once we come to Allah and ask Allah, Allah will come towards us. And we know if we come with a hand, Allah will come with an arm. If we come walking to Allah, Allah will come running to us. It's so important in times like this to come and sincerely ask Allah for help. And inshallah, with Allah, will come and listen to our dua and come and give us that help we need. Are we sometimes late at getting things done? Is that a weakness we have? Somebody mentioned about timekeeping. Maybe that might be a weakness. And we're not going through timekeeping today and time management, but maybe something else we can do again in the future. Indeed. It's so important to be able to break down your day. The good point about time management is to make an agenda and see first see how we spend our day, reflect on our day. So don't do anything, just write down the first day, the first couple of days. How do I spend my days? And then see where you lose these minutes, these precious times. Where is that lost? And how can I grab those precious times? And how can I avoid everything being urgent and important? How can I bring it sooner and deal with it sooner rather than leaving it to the last minute and then getting stressed over it and then having to do things in a rush? Some of us procrastinate, put off things. So again, if we understand it, that's what I'm like. How can I do things better? How can I have deadlines that I break down those deadlines? So I have to have this report in by this day. Okay, I need to have a draft one in 2 days, or to myself at least 2 days beforehand. So to give myself some time to look at that report. So not waiting to the last minute, or I'm putting in for a funding bid. Not waiting until the 12 midnight closing time, because maybe your internet might go down at that one time and you miss it. So doing it beforehand, so you're much more relaxed and spacing it out, much more important for us. So these are the inner things we look at, our strengths, our weaknesses. Then externally, opportunities and threats. What opportunity do I need to develop? Take advantage of your strengths or limit your weaknesses. These are opportunities. You could be learning a language at home. Actually, I did want to think of that. Could I learn a language here in these days? But I've been so busy with work, subhanAllah, that I've been busier at home since lockdown than I would have if I've been normally going to work. So please keep me in your dua, inshallah, that Allah would barakah in my time and all of your time, inshallah. What else would you like to do? Would you like to make something? This is where we need to open our brain to opportunities. So to think of a vast amount of things, not limit ourselves to 1 or 2 things. Think about it. Sleep with a pen and paper beside your bed. And if a thought comes to you, write it down. Because it's some of those thoughts that have made people very famous. And also, they have gained a lot of money from it. So don't discount anything. Put down all the opportunities and then think them through later on. And threats. Threats from outside. Try to minimize the threats. Try not to shut down your dreams. Try not to have your weaknesses become your threats. So minimize the threats that we have from outside and don't let them affect us. Think of positively. There will always be issues there. There will always be things outside that will affect us. But again, go back to ourselves and look at ourselves and think, okay, I can do this. I want to do this. And inshallah, Allah will help me. And when you have that intention, inshallah, Allah will make it easier for you and make it easier for us all. So I hope that makes sense for us and for everybody, that you're able to do something. So remember this, please write it down for something that you can do over this week, looking at yourself and really exploring yourselves. to try and gain from this time, gain from this isolation period, and come out of it as different people. Imagine coming out of this with your children going back to school and saying, oh, it was the best time ever. We had such fun and we learned this and we did this. Imagine that. Imagine for young people that you're doing something that you never thought you could do because you use this time effectively. And don't let the media and the news and all of that take over our time. Be mindful of our phones, how much phone time, because actually it sucks away so much of our time for us. And think that everything I'm doing, I'm going to be rewarded for, inshallah. And as parents, that you're getting reward for all what you're doing. I think sometimes we forget about this. We forget how easy it is as parents to gain rewards from our parenting. And it's one of the things I always start my parenting programs with, our intention to raise our children and raise them the best way we can. Because we, inshallah, will get rewarded for that intention. And then our intention before we do everything for our children. So whether we're cooking for them, or washing clothes, or cleaning the house, if we have the intention before we do everything that we want to make them good Muslims, righteous children, grow up in a good way, to be able to give back to the community, to give back to society, to look after each other and the society around us, we will get rewarded for this. We often forget because we get so busy doing the everyday jobs that we forget to make that intention. Raising children, raising righteous children benefits us now and in the hereafter. Alhamdulillah, we get rewards even after we die, inshallah, if we raise righteous children, mashallah. So much respect given to parents, mashallah, in Islam. And we have is it a hadith here that says, my Lord, have mercy on them both, as they did care for me when I was little. Actually, it's not, it's an ayah Quran. So the full ayah is chapter 23, verse 24. Just shows there's lots of ayahs in the Quran that we have, that, alhamdulillah, that we can use or reflect on to help us to understand our faith and to understand the beauty of our faith and all that it means, or all the ayahs of Quran and the reflections in relation to parenting. Parenting is a trust and form of worship, and your possessions and your children are a test, and with Allah is a mighty reward. Inshallah. MashaAllah. What beautiful phrase there. With Allah is our reward. Yes, we're being tested at the moment as we're going through this. And if we keep patient and ask Allah for patience and gratitude and understand each other better, Allah, inshallah, will reward us. And inshallah, we'll be able to raise our children to the best possible way. We have a very famous saying, play with them for 7, teach them for 7, and be friends with them for 7. This doesn't mean that you only play with your children for 7 years and that's it. No, you still need to play with your teenagers. You still need to play together as families, whether they're older or not. Even couples need that fun time together. If you look at the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha, how they used to have fun playing games together. And if we follow the Prophet's example, we need to be having this in our families. Much more laughter, much more fun, inshallah. Making the home a place that everybody wants to be in. So often we have that place very nice and decorated and inviting for our visitors. And when visitors ring the door, we run to the door to see them and invite them in. Actually, our family is the most important to us. So we should be grateful for our family and responding to our family as if they were the best friends to you. But it does change. The concepts change. So we play, and lots of learning can be taught through play. And in some countries, they only start teaching at 7, actually. They teach through play up to then. So play is vital. Teaching then is important, and friendship. It means that in the teenage years, the relationship change. Yes, you're still their parents, but the relationship change, you become more like their friends. At this stage, a lot of teenagers, 13, 14, feel their peers are more important to them. And this is where you need to be more like a friend to them, inshallah. Because we want our children to have adab, good manners, good contact, ikhlaq, good character, inshallah, tawbah, repentance, reflect on ourselves and reflect on our children. Thankfulness, praise. I've just did a Facebook Live on this Thursday about praise, about thankfulness, and how we should praise and be thankful for each other. I'll come back to this a little bit later on, inshallah. And asking for consultation, shura, when we are trying to put things together, especially now, when we're trying to develop some different boundaries in the house, some different timetables in the house, some different routines in the house, we need to sit together as consultation. Sit around the table together, the consultation, like King Arthur and the Round Table, where everybody gets a chance. But this is an Islamic concept. This shura is an Islamic concept, inshallah, that we should all be having in our families, developing those boundaries, those routines together, so that we can all agree on them and we all have an input to it. And we know when people input to something, they will take ownership of it. And this is why this is so important for us, inshallah. Let's move on to the next slide. Importance of parenting. Parenting is important for all of this development, indeed. So parents, you do a lot of work, mashallah, mashallah. You probably don't realize the amount of work that you're doing and how you're meeting all of these areas, mashallah. Parents, grandparents, everybody is important in raising that child. I'm sure you've often heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes so many different components to raise a child. And now more than ever, you are doing much more in helping your child develop in all of these areas. Physical development, neurological development, language development, social development, emotional regulation, cognitive development. Attaining at school, well, now we're getting homework from school to do, and we have lots of apps to do. So you're trying to look after their education, their moral behavior, their spiritual well-being. SubhanAllah, we have a lot to do in these areas, and parents are busy doing this. And some parents I know are still working. They're still out in those core people out working at the moment, either in the NHS or doing other services that we rely on, as well as doing this. They still have to come home and do this as well. So they're really stretched hard in what they're doing. And it's even a bigger fear for them every time they go on outside. They're fearing bring things, maybe this virus back home with them and affecting their children. So it's a bigger worry for them. But may Allah reward them even more, mashallah, for what they're doing to protect us all and keep us all safe and healthy, inshallah. Parents are cleaners, cookers, counselors, teachers. At the moment, you have so many qualifications, even more so than before. And subhanAllah, and you go in and out of that every day doing these jobs. Parenting, well, if we don't get it right, these are some of the things that happen if we get it wrong. Don't need to go through them, because I think a lot of you already understand this. And these are the things that we're trying to prevent happening, indeed. Trying to prevent that bad parenting and that shouting that may go on in some families. Because this should not, inshallah, happen in any family. There's lots of things coming over my screen at the moment. I don't know if anybody's seeing that. But we want to have, inshallah, brilliant brain development, lovely children, good families, inshallah. So we don't have children with lack of self-esteem or confidence issues or identity issues or other issues also, because that's what bad parenting often leads to, indeed, unfortunately. And be aware that our children are listening to us and learning from us all of the time, consciously and subconsciously, all of the time. These are the pillars, I put in here to say what the 5 pillars of parenting programs, the pillars that underpin our programs. What is it we're trying to develop here in our children? From pregnancy right up, we're trying to develop that character, that mercy, that kindness, that compassion, that patience. How do we do this? We do it through learning knowledge and skills. So we mentioned already about intentions, but learning knowledge, going to programs, reading books, understanding your children, and putting different parenting techniques into place, because every child is very different. And what worked for one child may not work for the other child. So when you learn that knowledge, you need to put it into actions, to practice those actions. And with the practice and these actions, then the changes will become a habit. There may be a time when things becomes difficult and things go back, and we ask you to be steadfast. If you're trying to implement something new, be steadfast, strive, and have that commitment there. And inshallah, Allah will help you with this commitment, inshallah, to have positive relationships, that love, that trust, that respect in families, inshallah. Now, this is the little exercise I'm going to give you before you go into break. So I want you to go away and think about this and write up in the chats, inshallah, some of these answers. So parenting today, what qualities do you think parents should have? So some of you go away and think of what qualities you have. Some of you also think of the responsibilities. What responsibilities should parents have? Or do parents have? And then, what are some of the family values that underpin parenting? So 3 questions. And I will leave this slide up if I can while you go off in your break. I'll pass over to Sarah now, and she can determine how long you've got for a break. But we're looking at 3 things: qualities, responsibilities, and values. Is that okay? Assalamu alaikum, everybody, back again. I will try, inshallah. Just looking through the notes there, there's quite a lot to go through, so maybe I'll hurry up a little bit, inshallah, to get through it all. So have we had any feedback in the chat for what I asked, the first question I asked? What qualities do you think parents should have?
No, that there isn't anything on the chat. No one's written it out.
Okay, so maybe I'll just go through a few things then, just to save some time. Probably people are still thinking about it, but I'll just help you out here. I've got some qualities already prepared, as they say. One I've done earlier. So we should be more merciful to our children, to love our children more, honesty, teaching, responsibility, justice, good treatment. These are all important role qualities we should have, and we should be role modeling them ourselves. You know, if you want to become something, a lot of life coaches will tell you, look at the person doing that job already and see what kind of qualities they have, how they spend their day, how they got into that post, and then look at them and see how can you take that and role model some of what they did in your life, or look at your life and how can you role model them. Our best role model, subhanAllah, is the Prophet ﷺ, and we should be taking him as the best example to us as a role model, the most perfect role model we have. And if we want our children to have these qualities, we need to be role modeling them ourselves. We shouldn't be telling them one thing and then doing something else ourselves. So we should be incorporating these things into our lives and role modeling as part of who we are, part of our well-being. I will remind you of a hadith here where a man saw the Prophet ﷺ kissing his grandchildren. And the man said, I have 10 children and I've never shown any love to any of them. And the Prophet ﷺ looked at the speaker in astonishment and said, he who is not merciful will not be shown any mercy. So how important it is to have mercy and to show mercy, inshallah, and to be forgiving of others and forgiving of our children and not holding on to things and waking up every day with a fresh white page. No matter how annoyed you are with your children, we shouldn't be going to bed angry like this. We should be solving it before we go to bed, helping them to be happy before they sleep, and then waking up the next day with a clean page and not reminding them of the nasty things they did. But it's important, the qualities there, that we need to be role modeling them, inshallah. If we look at responsibilities, we have physical, emotional, social, intellectual, and spiritual responsibilities. Physical, we have three things that are mentioned in our faith: horse riding, archery, and swimming. With swimming, we know if we save one life, we save all humanity. Emotions, we should be teaching our children about emotions, about love, about affection. It's not good enough to leave these discussions until they're growing up and to sit down and have a chat about what is affection, what is marriage about, what is relationships about. We need to be building this in from an early age and drip feeding our children. If we drip feed, it's like pouring on a tap on a dry sponge. Yeah, your child is that dry sponge and you pour on the tap. If you pour on the tap, the water runs off. Well, if you drip it bit by bit by bit, it will soak up. This is where we need to be talking about topics that may be difficult to our children from the beginning, so that they understand the proper terminology and the proper names for their body, to be able to have those conversations and not to be shy with our children. There's nothing in our faith that makes us shy. Anger, another very important topic when we're looking at emotions. How do we deal with anger? But if we look at the Islamic concept and the psychological concept, they're so similar, subhanAllah. In psychology, it says count to 10, or count backwards from 10, take deep breaths, splash cold water on your face. In Islam, it tells us if we're standing up, sit down. If we're sitting down, lie down. Do tasbih, similar to counting. Do wudu, pray. MashaAllah, all of these concepts helps us. So anger itself is a healthy emotion, because sometimes we need anger to know when things are wrong. We need to be able to express it in a proper way. It's how we express it is the problem. Social, learning how to get on, good conduct with each other, good manners, smiling, smile at each other. We don't smile enough. A smile is a charity. So we should be smiling at each other, gaining rewards from this, because you're increasing the endorphins in your brain and other people's brain, because when you smile, the other people smile back. I'd love to see all your faces now. I'm sure you're all smiling back now at the moment. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. Smiling is really important. Intellectual, yes, it's again very important. Iqra, reading with your children at the moment, reading stories, teach them things. Or the first word in Quran wasn't fasting or praying, it was Iqra. So it just gives the importance of reading and the emphasis on reading. And then spirituality, how we develop our character to be better people, to interact better with others, inshallah. So that's some of the responsibilities we have as parents, and then our family values. And we spoke about values earlier on. That love, that commitment that we want in our family. To be caring and fulfill our promises. When we make promises, we need to fulfill them. Close family bond, thankful to each other, show appreciation to each other. Hug each other. If we're families together, so we're enclosed together, so we're allowed to hug each other, alhamdulillah, at home at the moment. And hug your children, because they will need that hug and that appreciation at the moment. Respect and valuing everybody's thoughts, feelings, and contributions. They may not be the same as yours, but they need respect. Honesty is so important. Honesty in the family, I think, is the foundation, one of the foundations for me. Because if you want your children to be honest, to tell you the truth, if your children start lying to you, to tell you what you want to hear, then they'll start covering it up with another lie and another lie. So honesty is that foundation in relationships. We need to have that honesty there. Responsibility. So we're teaching children responsibility for possessions, for knowledge, and of course modeling those good qualities ourselves, looking after our neighbours. I heard Sarah earlier on that was putting something outside our door for neighbours, and they'd started a neighbourhood WhatsApp. What a lovely thing to do, looking after our neighbours. And we're all probably living in streets that we haven't spoken much to our neighbours. How nice it is now to look after each other, mashallah, to be caring for each other. To forgive as well is really important. Forgiveness if we make mistakes. We know our Islam tells us we should be making 70 excuses. How often do you do that? How often do you give your spouse or your children 70 excuses? How often do you give them 7 excuses? How many times have you reached even 7? We don't even reach 1. So we need to be giving them 70 excuses, because this is what our Islam is telling us. Good communication, good family cohesion, generosity, and be able to empathize. Empathy is so important. If anybody knows me, I love empathy. Because truly, if we were able to empathize with each other, the world would be a different place. If we were able to put ourselves right into the other person's shoes, as they say, and understand how they were feeling, what they were going through, we would be very different. That's something we need to practice and should practice over this time, inshallah. But unfortunately, families don't always get on well together. And sometimes there is breakdown in relationships. This may be through the pressures of parenthood, which there is a lot of pressures at the moment. Lots and lots of pressures. You may have extended family that you're worried about, grandparents living either with you or living somewhere else, and you're worried about them. And those pressures are hard as we're going through this lockdown at the moment. Financial pressures also on a lot of families that may have lost their jobs or reduced hours and are wondering how they're going to cope. So there's lots of pressures there. We need to be able to understand those pressures, because they will affect us. But we can do something about it. We can talk about it, put a plan in place, have an action, and look at things that we can deal with. So if we break down, we're going to look at that in a bit, about how we can deal with some things in different circles. I'll come to that in a few slides, inshallah. Pressures of peers in society. Peers, especially in the teenage years, there's a lot of peer pressure that goes on. There's a lot of teenagers that get influenced by their peers and want to do some things, dyeing their hair or body piercing. Their peers are more important at that stage than their parents. And peer pressure can break down the relationship with a family. Even actually families that are trying to be better than their neighbours or their friends, keeping up with the Khans. It used to be keeping up with the Joneses, but now I hear it's keeping up with the Khans. So we need to look at that and see, is it important? Do our homes need to be show houses? They're homes. They're where we live. They're the place that we grow and nurture each other and look after each other. The people in our homes are much more important than the decoration on the walls. So we need to keep that in mind, inshallah. Then sometimes there's a relationship gap there, a generation gap that we need to understand. And that's a bit of mediating. There's a give on both sides. So parents have to give and children have to give. We have to understand each other there and try to have a win-win situation. Poor communication often happens, and we're all speaking the same language but still have poor communication, not expressing ourselves properly, not getting the message across properly, the other person not being able to hear us properly. It's very important. We're going to talk about communication also. Values are very important, and we need to understand our values and deal with them. And maybe if we do value exercise some other time, we can look at your values and your spouse's values and see how you can grow your family values together, inshallah. And dealing with conflict. Getting over conflict. Don't always think I'm right, you're wrong. No, this is not helpful. You know, often we're wrong ourselves, and we need to acknowledge we're wrong. Do we apologize to our children if we're wrong? We need to be doing that. Our children need to see us apologizing so they learn how to apologize, inshallah, also. when they do things wrong, because we learn from doing things wrong. That's how we learn. That's how we learn from our mistakes. When we make those mistakes, we actually think, I'm not going to make them again. I'm going to do it differently the next time. So sometimes it's really important to leave children make some mistakes, because they will learn from that, within your guidance, of course, and helping them so that they will learn from those mistakes, inshallah. Establishing good connection and bonding. And of his signs, he's created you from yourselves mates, that you may find tranquility in them, and he's placed between you affection and mercy. So we need to look at that mercy. We need to think about that, what Allah is saying in the Quran about this affection and this mercy, and be merciful to each other. Be merciful to our families, especially now when we're in isolation, locked down together. We're closer together. We need to be thinking of each other. We need to be putting ourselves in other people's shoes and thinking of them and how we can understand them to get on better together as a family, inshallah. The Prophet was always attuned to children's needs. And I'm sure you're aware of this, that the Prophet, subhanAllah, alhamdulillah, how he used to shorten prayers when he'd hear a child crying. And when his grandchildren would climb on his back when he did sujood, he didn't throw them off and shrug them off. He actually would stay in sujood until they got off. Now, do we have that patience? Do we have that with our children? But these are the examples from our faith that we need to go back to again, inshallah. And these are just some reminders that will help us, inshallah. Again, looking at the Prophet, ﷺ, how did he communicate? When he was talking to somebody, he would look at them. Look straight at them, look at them in their eyes. So if it's to children, you need to come down to their level so that you're looking at them. He would turn his whole body towards that person. So even some of the lesser companions thought that they were more senior, closer companions to him, the way he used to treat them. He showed empathy to children, which we already mentioned. So this shows the importance of good communication skills. This is what we need to have, inshallah. The Prophet ﷺ didn't side glance somebody as if he was important. No, he'd come down to their level, use their name, maybe stroke them to say, I'm talking to you, and talk directly to them. This is what we need to do with our children. We need to come down, not shouting at them from the kitchen and to another room. Have you done this? Have you turned off the TV? Have you done that? Well, what happens? We need to go to our children, see do they understand what we're trying to say, get them to repeat it back to us so that we know that they understand. And then come back, say to them, when you've got that finished, come and tell me it's finished. That's what happens in the workplace. When your managers ask you to do something, they say, report back when you're finished. Yes. So we need to do that with our children. Rather than racing around the house shouting after them, we need to change it, tweak it. So it means tweaking a little bit, and they'll come back to you. Make life much, much easier for you, inshallah. Some of the components that we have when we're talking about establishing good relationships. But if we're looking at good relationships, looking at it from pregnancy, right up, especially pregnancy to 3, the most important stages of child development, mashallah. The important stages of the brain development, the neurons connecting every second. Imagine, neurons connect every second. This is how quick babies are learning. And they do this through attachment and bonding. And you understanding your baby through attunement as well. The way we respond to a child needs to show them that we care about them and that they can affect the world around us. So bonding is the relationship you have, the loving, warm relationship that you have with that child, with that baby. And it starts from pregnancy, where you actually start talking to your baby, maybe give the baby a nickname, and the baby getting to recognize your voice. Babies do recognize your voice, and actually can recognize mom's voice from the time they're born, mashallah, because mom is they're there listening to mom's voice constantly. If there is sounds of music or Quran or nasheeds on, they get to recognize those as well, and may find them comforting when they're distressed when they're born. So it's good to think about this, how we bond with our child, how we make an attachment with our child. That's the parent-child relationship, to make them feel safe and secure. This helps the child to grow up and have a positive view of themselves. Teaches them they can affect the world around them. When we tune to our baby's needs, when we're listening to the different cries, and when we do our parenting courses, our pregnancy and beyond pregnancy to 3 courses, we actually teach 3 cries. The na for being hungry, the ow for being tired, and it is ow, and the for burping. So parents know these 3 sounds before they deliver and are able to recognize those sounds and that body language as well, because it's really important not just to wait until your child cries, but to understand the body language beforehand. Because if your child is hungry, there'll be some rooting happening beforehand, so that then you know that your baby needs a feed. These are the 3 elements that establish good relationship. This is where it all starts, from pregnancy right up to 3. So I have a reminder here that the benefits of early attachment also lead to easier and effective discipline and parenting later. However, it takes time for parents to build character. Just like the roots of the big tree takes time to grow in the ground. Character is like a tree. If the seeds are implanted early, good character will grow. So it's a lovely reminder for us to remember it takes time to nurture this, to water this, to look after this, to look after a plant well. It takes time for a plant to grow into a big, strong tree. It takes time also for our child to grow with that character that we want to see in our children. And I mentioned before, we're the first role model to our children. And we should be role modeling as the Prophet taught us, inshallah. So our children understand this, inshallah, and they themselves will grow up as good role models. I hope this is, you understand what I'm trying to say there. I'm going through this quite quickly, inshallah, because I wanted to move on to communication, which is vital, and it's really important for us to understand communication, to be able to communicate better with not just our younger children, but our school-going children and our teenagers. Communication is vital there. Communication, how we communicate. And this is a pie chart of how we communicate. 3 different aspects to communication. We have 7%, 38%, and 55%. And we communicate in the words we speak, in our tone of voice, and our body language. And I'm going to tell you the answers of this in a few minutes indeed, but I'm going to get you to think first before I tell you the answers. So if you could follow me in this diagram of what I'm going to do, and maybe then the answers will come to you if you don't know the answers of which percentage stands for which. So do you remember the compass in the old days where you had the head of the compass, you stick it down and then you draw a circle? Okay, so I want you to all to do this. With your thumbs, put your thumbs down and draw a big circle with your finger all the way around, yeah? And then I want you to take your finger to your cheek. How many of you took it to your chin? And how many of you took it to your cheek? Were you following me and took it to your chin? I think a lot of you were, because when we do this, this is what most people do. They just follow the person in front of them, follow the body language and do it. So now you know what the big percentage is. The 55% is for body language. Our body language is so important to us. Body language is something we really forget about, subhanAllah, that our expressions, our hands, our eyebrows, whether we're stiff up or whether we're relaxed, which way we sit, do we smile, not smile? all of this body language that we are releasing unknown to ourselves. Some people are really good at picking up body language. I can understand it. We should always, even if we pick up something, we should always clarify it by asking questions. The next percentage is 38%. If I spoke to you this evening in this tone of voice for the whole hour and a half, would you be happy with me and enjoy this session? So that's tone of voice. Tone of voice is putting stress on the words that we want people to hear and understand. So we need to use our tone of voice effectively. And then the 7%, yes, only the 7% is words. Imagine, only all that 7% only words. If we're doing telephone conversations, which a lot of us is doing at the moment, and working from home and interacting with people, or doing like this on Zoom or other platforms, we may not be seeing people's faces. And if we are, we may be seeing them a few seconds late, so it's difficult to understand the body language. In situations like this, where we're talking over the phone, where we don't see the body language, these percentages change. So the 7% move up to 12% for words, and then it's 88% for tone of voice. We need to tune into that tone of voice to understand things. Now, this is really important in listening and communication. We should be learning how to communicate effectively. And there's different types of communication. There is sham communication, we say, not paying attention at all, not listening to the other person, doing your own things in your own thoughts. Yeah. This is what a lot of us do, indeed. We're there, we're not taking it in, people are just talking away beside us and just gone somewhere else. That's one type of communication. The next type of communication is cosmetic communication, where you're there, you're giving some attention, maybe you're watching the TV and you're going, yeah, but you're still watching the TV. So you're cosmetically there only. The next type of communication is conversational communication, where we're having conversations and you're thinking of the answer. You're not actually tuned into what the person is saying. You're waiting to put in, I must say this, oh, I must think that, I need to say this. So you're thinking of the answer to put into the conversation. That's another type of conversation we have. Where we want you to be is active listeners, to look at the body language and understand the body language, to understand the tone of voice, to see the words that are saying, to display empathy and be able to empathize with people. So actively involved. There's another type, which is deep, the fifth one. That is for counselors, psychotherapists, psychologists. We don't need you to be at the deep level where you're interpreting things. We do need you to be active listeners, and there in that conversation, listening and understanding, and be there and understand your children. This is how important it is to have active listening, not ready to jump in, but really getting to understand them and actively listening to them, inshallah. Not jumping into thinking about what I need to say and the messages I need to get out there. And telling them things, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or you should do this. We're great at giving advice. We need to listen and try and reflect back some things, because the other person probably knows the answer, but just wants to mull it through it. So for couples that are here, parents that are here, please take on this on board between yourselves when you're in this, especially in this isolation period. Don't be there ready to jump in. Be there ready to listen. Listen to understand. We often say we have one mouth and two ears, because we should be doing double the listening to speaking. Listening to try and see what the person is saying and understand what they're saying. And here's some ways that we can use listening skills effectively, or we can follow on from listening skills actually. It's formulating messages. You messages, I messages. Formulating I messages. Describe the situation and the behavior you find that's troubling you. So when you want to talk about yourself and your issues, and you find that the other person is continuously jumping in, we need to take a little bit of responsibility in describing that and understanding this, so that we're able to talk about it. And then we're able to focus on feelings about our behavior, but focus on the other person's feelings as well. We're taking I feel, taking responsibility. So when we're in an argument, we often, you made me feel like this, you made me do this. We don't take responsibility for our feelings. We don't look at, I'm angry because, or this, when this happens, this, I feel angry. It's you made me. But nobody can make somebody else angry. We should take responsibility ourselves for that emotion, whatever that emotion is. Because, and whatever the reason is, and then I would like. So these are 4 different ways. Say maybe when you're stating the consequences, because you do this, I would like to see this happens. I'd like to see this. What would you like to happen in the future? So describing the situation. The TV is loud, or the music is loud. So when the TV is loud or when the music is loud, I feel frustrated. I feel frustrated because I cannot hear what the caller is saying on the phone. I would like you to turn down the music when I have a phone call. See how different this is? In that you turn up that music and you make me angry and I can't hear this, and blaming the other person. So having that conversation, that 2-way process to understand each other is really important, and break down those messages. So how many of us are giving messages like that at the moment when we're at home, and are really understanding each other and taking time? There is another communication tool that could be used. It's called the pen, where you can only speak when you're holding the pen. So when you hold the pen, you speak, and then the other person speaks when they hold the pen. So that allows you time to think about what you're going to say, and allows the other person time to respond. So again, these are tools, some tools and skills that you can use in your home during this difficult time of trying to unpick and solve those issues that we can solve, inshallah. Because if you remember back to what we did about the iceberg, we're seeing a lot of those things at top of the moment. But we need some tools and skills to be able to unpick them and to be able to solve them. So we should think of things of circle of influence and the circle of concern. Being proactive is being in the circle of influence, and use our energy positively with there, and what we can influence, what can we change. There's a lot of things in the circle of concern that is bothering us, but we can't change them. So if we have in the circle of concerns, we have the news at the moment. Well, we've no control over that. We can't change that. The weather, beautiful weather, mashallah, but we've no control over that. We can't change that either. What others are saying or thinking, we can't control others. But we can control the circle of influence for ourselves. So we can wash our hands and keep washing our hands as government guidelines and protect ourselves. We can look at what do I get dressed in every day, and do I get dressed every day? And it's really important to get dressed every day, parents, to get your children dressed every day, to get your children up at a routine every day, and to continue those routines, inshallah. What you're eating, how you're exercising, how you're praying, what amount of spirituality you bring into your homes during this time, how you interact with others, how you spend your time, how you're helping others. These are really important parts of the circle of influence. How actually even we love ourselves. What love do we have for ourselves? What me time do we give ourselves? And parents, you need to give yourself some me time. It's vitally important. You know, in the airplanes, when we go on the airplanes, the air hostesses stand up and they say, if there is a problem, turbulence, and you need oxygen, the oxygen mask will drop down. Please put on your own mask before you put on your child's mask. Yes? Because if you put on your child's mask or go reach for your child's mask, you mightn't be able to reach your child because you don't have your own mask on first. This is why it's important to look after yourself, to be able to look after your children. Give yourself some me time. Give yourself a bit of time that you have for yourselves. Both parents need to be doing this. If there's 2 parents in the household, find some time that you can go away, you can have a bath, you can read a book, you can watch your TV program, a favorite TV program, some time for yourself to relax. If you're a single parent, try and get your children in an activity or watching something so you find that you have some me time. So this is where you can use TV if they have to watch a TV program, so you can go away and have, if they're safe and they're okay, able to do that and old enough able to do that while you have a bath. It's important to look after yourself, to have some me time there. Even just having that cup of tea, going out to the garden, or open the windows and enjoying the sounds that you hear, and having that cup of tea to yourself is vital, that we have that me time. These are things we have control over. I'm going to move on because of time. We spoke about making goals earlier on. Well, if we just go back to some of these things in the circle of influence, there may be something there that we want to change, that we feel that we have some influence over, that we want to do better. So something that we spoke about earlier on, that really I want to do that better now. I have some influence over this. I want to change this and bring this into my life. Or I love doing art and I want to draw something, or I want to bake a cake, or I want to do something new that I've never done before. I want to learn a language, for example. I want to learn some surahs of Quran. I want to be more spiritual in this time. We have influence over this, so we can look at this. To make that into a goal, we have to make it smart. Now, I'm sure a lot of you, again, if we go back, it's like the SWOT analysis, you've come across this in business, but you've never thought of looking at it for yourself and making SMART goals. It's the very same tool that we're using. SMART, specific, measurable, motivated, aggrieved, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. This is where we make SMART goals, indeed. Make our goals clear and interactive, so that we can establish these goals, inshallah, with each other, for ourselves. Another time we can do the role model of how to establish it, but the goal needs to be smart, needs to be well defined and clear. Need to have a measurement. Where am I now on this goal, and what will it look like when it's finished? Is it attractive and achievable? So if your goal is something like going to the moon, it's not attractive or achievable. Actually, we need attractive and achievable goals at the moment when we're at home, something we can do at home. It is realistic to us to be able to do. We have the knowledge with the time to be able to do it. And then set a time limit for us. So if it is learn that surah of Quran, when do we want to do that? Do we want to do this before Ramadan? Okay, so I only have, now Ramadan is within a very short period of time. The next, I don't know how many days is left, but not long, less than 15 days now to Ramadan. So maybe we'll go to a shorter surah that we want to learn, so I can learn that before Ramadan, inshallah. Or it may be that you're refreshing some surahs, or that you're reading certain parts of the Quran and I want to read it. So it's breaking it down and put a time limit to that, so you get to achieve it, inshallah, and work through that time limit. We have a few minutes left. And I want to bring it back, all this learning and everything that we're doing now. That why are we doing this? We're doing this learning this evening, and I've gone through a lot of knowledge, a lot of different tools with you, a lot of concepts there, a lot of strategies there. It's all learning. But inshallah, this will not just change our brain and how we're thinking and motivate us to do things better, but also help us to increase our potential to do better ourselves and with our families, to bring our families closer together, to have those connections together, to get to understand each other, and to spend this time increasing and motivating your children to be the best that they can as well, inshallah. So in summary, everyone should make the most of this lockdown, try to grow, try to self-development, try to build their strengths and make the most of the opportunities they have. Begin to build opportunities for children and young people, and also take on more roles and responsibilities, and enable your children to take on more roles, of course, according to the developmental age. But you'll be surprised, some things that they're able to take on more than you think. So give them some responsibilities, some roles, some duties that will help you and help them. Involve them in family discussions and decisions. Creating an environment where they feel connected to allow meaningful participation. Setting boundaries to keep safe. Teaching them about handling their emotions and how to express their emotions. Helping them to learn life skills and problem-solving skills. Teaching them to know and look after themselves. And teaching them their Islamic obligations. There's a lot with responsibilities, but we talked about a lot of this tonight, and I know you can do it. MashaAllah, you're all here this evening because you're all motivated to learn, to understand, to better yourself, MashaAllah. And if you ask Allah, Allah will help you to increase this knowledge, MashaAllah, and to do the things that you want to do. But mastering change may be difficult. Taking on new situations may not always go right. Trying out new ways of managing. Try it out. Don't just think about it. Try something. If we have to make the mistakes, look at the mistakes. We learn from our mistakes and then rethink it and replan it. Always look to the future. So learn from the past, look to the future. Learning from those mistakes so we can do it better the next time. This is really important. None of us are perfect. We're all on this learning journey, inshallah. And this is how we master change. Inshallah, Allah will help us to make everything easier for us, inshallah. And we have our Islam that will help us to do this. And I love this, that is this hadith here, a good example, an example of a good companion and a bad companion is like a perfume seller and a blacksmith. For the seller of perfume, he will either grant you some of it, or at least enjoy the pleasant smell. Whereas from the blacksmith, you'll either burn your clothes or gain the offensive smell. So we need to remember this, inshallah. And as I come to the very last slide, Sarah, if you're okay with it, if we have time, that we all make this pledge this evening to be better parents, inshallah. And I know I can't hear you all, but I would like you all to say this pledge, inshallah, together, that we make this intention that we're going to change ourselves to be better, because we all can do better. Each one of us, I can do better. Every time I deliver this and do parenting courses or talk to parents, I become a better parent myself and my children pick it up. So let us make this pledge together. I'll repeat it and you repeat after me. I pledge that.
I pledge that.
I will be God conscious and aware of my thoughts.
I will be God conscious and aware of my thoughts.
I will smile more and be thankful I have children.
I will smile more and be thankful I have children.
I will spend more quality time with my children.
I will spend more quality time with my children.
I will always use positive discipline techniques.
I will always use
positive discipline techniques.
And I'll make every effort to gain rewards from my parenting.
I will make every effort to gain rewards from my parent.
Inshallah, may Allah reward us for Sarah and everybody in ISB, mashallah, for giving us this time together to gain rewards from Allah, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.